Hello guys, welcome to the Smart Examiner Designer tutorial. This is the first tutorial in a while. That's due to the new release of the Smart Examiner. And we're talking about the version 2 release. And there are a number of features which have been added, that I'd like to walk you through. The biggest of the release is a new question type, which is the fill in the blank question. I'm just going to open a very sample project, okay? And because of the time it takes to create the question, I think it's best to use, an existing project to be able to explain this, okay? So basically, this is a fill in the blank question. If I was to create a new one, I'm going to right click on this, and then we have, the two multiple choice, single select, and fill in the blank. And basically all these questions here are fill in the blank questions, which I'm going to walk you through. The other thing which we did was to add a feature that allows you to specify a type of calculator which you want in each paper. So for instance, I could come to the paper and then pick a question on a calculator type if it's important or if it's required in this paper. We could go with a simple or advanced plus base. And in order to show the designer of the question how the calculator is going to look, you can come to help and see view calculator, and I'm just going to bring this in. So this is like the simple calculator. It's very simple, having basic requirements. If you go to the advanced, you can see a little bit more advanced information. If you go to press the shift, you can see a few more options over there. And the base is just base calculation. You have binary, octal, decimal, and hexadecimal calculation. So you can also combine the advanced and the base in the option over here. And then we also added a feature to show the question marks for the paper. So all the questions in the paper, you can be able to show the question marks if you preview them. You can see the value of this question like over here. Okay, so going to the question. This is a sample question, something that that is possible. Basically what this question type does is it opens up a new type of question streams that can be used or generated. Basically whatever it is you can think about. It just gives you a lot of possibilities towards creating test and exam questions. So this is something like a passage that the user has to something like fill in the blanks. Okay, in this very question, it's been split into about 6 questions, and each one has a gap that you have to fill in. So this one, the very first one, asks the user to fill in for the first. The next asks the user to fill in for the second, and you get the idea. And there is another one that allows the user to in the same question. We have about 9 dashes here, or blanks as you want to call them. And in the same question, the user can fill in the 9 of them from this image which we have here. Words, image, words, or words of images. Okay, so I'm just going to explain what the properties are so that you understand how to build these types of questions. Before I go there, there is yet another type that it allows you to do. So basically, this is like an answer poll, and then this is like saying list 4 cities in Ontario outside an answer poll. So you have a predefined list of answers, and the user is expected to provide just like 4, and it's going to check in the poll for matching. Okay, So this is the property, number of answers, and it's trying to say, okay, what's the number of answers the user is supposed to provide, and then it also talks about the number of answers which you can provide, depending on the strict ordering which you set, and we're going to come to that later on. Question section, I believe it's something you should have known by now if you have followed us with the previous tutorials. Case sensitive matching talks about trying to match the answer the user provides in a case sensitive way. So we're trying to say capital letters are considered. So if case sensitive is defined, we're trying to say that a word like 7 will be different from 7, because I don't know if you can see this very well, but the first one is capital and the second is not. So if it's set, it means that we're going to consider all the capitalizations and the word before we do adequate matching. So the next thing is strip spaces. Strip spaces talks about removing spaces before and after the character. So what are we trying to talk about? So we're trying to say, if for instance I was supposed to provide the word 7, and maybe I introduced a space before and or introduce a space after, or multiple spaces, it's going to trim the spaces before comparing against the answer provided. Basically, it's going to trim the answer provided as well, because it's possible that the answer provided could have spaces. So it's going to trim both of them before it does matching or comparison. So that's basically what that talks about. And the next one is ignore multiple spaces. So when we talk about ignore multiple spaces, so if for instance the user is supposed to provide an answer like 7 eggs, and for some reason the user provides an answer having spaces in between multiple spaces that say 7x, it means that we're going to regard this excessive space as just a single space before doing the matching. So that's basically what this talks about. Now, partial scoring is a policy. Basically, it's only in effect when the user has to provide more than one answer. So basically, when the number of answers is more than one, that's only when partial scoring is in effect. So what is this policy? So we're trying to say, if the user is supposed to provide several answers for a particular question, so let us say, like this one we have here, the user is supposed to provide 4 answers, and the user maybe gets 1 or 2 or fails 1 or 2. It means that for those that the user, or the examinee, depends on what you're calling them. If you call them students, for those that they get, should we award them, marks, partial marks based on that? So we're trying to say, if the value of this question, like we have here, the value of this question is 2, and these are supposed to provide 4, it means that the value of each question is 0.5. So if I'm able to get one of these cities right, am I awarded this, 0.5 marks? That's basically what, partial scoring is talking about. Now, this also introduces, another concept, because if partial scoring is awarded, it means that the user could, want to provide as many answers as possible. Maybe I'm supposed to list like 4, but I could want to provide like 10, trying to do some, guessing. So what happens is, for every answer the user provides that is more than what is required, the value of a particular question is deducted. So let us say I am, in this scenario now, we know that the value of a question is 0.5, based on the fact that the question value is 2 and I'm supposed to provide 4. So it means that one question is 0.5. So if I provided 5, for instance, it means that 0.5 is going to be deducted from whatever I get. Now, the user can never go to negative. The answer, the value of what they get can never go to negative. So it's either 0 or anything higher than 0 based on, the deductions they've been able to get. You can read a little bit more about it in the hints here. Okay, if you're still getting confused, you can read a little bit more about it here. Well, it's a policy, so if you want to make use of it, fine. If you really do not want to make use of it, you're free. And the next thing we have is strict ordering. Now, basically what this talks about is the answer the user is going to provide. Is it going to be in an exact order? So let's say we have, in this question, as we have here, we know that, the user is supposed to provide these answers in order. So it makes sense to put this as strict ordering. So it means that the answer the user provide would have to do matching, one-on-one matching, exactly in the order that is provided. So that's basically what the strict ordering talks about. Now, this strict ordering brings, some of the, features which I'm about to explain. But before I go on to doing that, I need you to understand that when strict ordering is yes, you can, provide what I would call additional answers. So let us say ocean, is the correct answer, but you also want something like seas to be, accepted, maybe awarded the same mark, or let's say partial mark. You can come over here and add, the other allowed answers. That's basically what this is called. So if, for instance, I say I want C, to be correct. Now, it doesn't fit in this very question, but you should understand what I'm trying to talk about, Or I want to make sure that in a case whereby I do strict, matching as per case sensitive matching, I want the capital form of ocean, to be awarded a mark. So I could say give it full mark, or, give it half mark. Basically what this talks about is in relation to the mark assigned for that very answer, what do we assign this other allowed answer? Should we give it a full mark? So basically full mark means that if this very answer, ocean, is assigned 1 mark, as it is in this case, because the value of the question is 9 and we have 9 options. So it means that ocean, if the user gets this ocean right, it means that the user is supposed to be awarded 1 mark. So if I say full, it means that what this ocean is going to mean, that if the user types it in this case, we should award a full mark. If I change this to half, I'm trying to say that the value of this question is going to be halved. In this case, it's going to be 0.5. You understand what I'm trying to talk about. So you can add multiple entries, and merely you add them, it saves automatically. So you might want to be careful about that. If you really don't need them, you can end up deleting them. Okay. Now, if for instance I change this strict ordering to no, okay. Now, what this does is it takes off the ability for me to add other allowed answers. Now, there is a reason for that, and I don't know if there's going to be enough time for me to explain that, because it's going to be really, really, difficult to be able to, keep track of what answer represents what. Why? Because it is possible that 2 answers could be the same thing. I could, ask something like a maths question and say, what are the ages of John and Peter? Based on, some logic, which they are supposed to perform. And I could end up resulting in the same answer. So if we provide an other allowed answer in this case, we could, it could be difficult to do a matching. So which answer would I say is supposed to match the other one? So for strict ordering, we're trying to say that in any form the user provides it, okay, we should give them the mark in any form. Okay, so if it were the case that 2 answers were going to be the same, okay, it means that we would have a hard time, trying to say which of the, 7, let's say the 2 answers, the ages were 7 and 7, which of the 7 is going to be 4, which one. And it's a little bit more complicated than that if you really take time to think about it. So what we did was, we just created, an answer pool, which you can add. Okay, so basically what this does is we can have an exact match, for what we want, but the user could provide, the answers in any form if that was the case. And then we could also provide additional one and then supply what, the marks we're going to assign. By default, it's full, but you could change that to whatever it is you want. So for the most part, I'm going to change this to yes. Okay, because that fits, the very question which we're trying to talk about. Okay. So, for this other one, it fits the answer pool, thing which we have. So, basically that's what happens. All right. The other thing which I'm quickly going to talk about is, some of the things which we added. Well, for the configuration of defaults, you can now, add configurations for the different question types as well. So we split this into the multiple question type and then the multiple question settings and then the fill in the blank settings. So you can also set, some of these defaults basically and apply them to, your project. So coming to the paper here now, the sections, contents and sections. Originally, if you had to, change a section, you would have to do that one by one, okay, changing the section. But now you can, change multiple sections by clicking this arrow right here, okay, and clicking change multiple sections, and then select the question which you want, and then you can change the selected to, whatever it is you want. In this case, I'm not going to do that. I just, wanted to demonstrate the feature. So, I believe that's about it for the new features in this version. Thank you very much for watching.